This episode of SpectreSoundStudios is brought to you by the Shredmonton Metal Festival and Conference. I'll see you there in Edmonton, Alberta from May 6th to the 8th. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 40 of SMG Viewers Comments. Holy smokes, I can't believe we're 40 episodes in and we're at about 140,000 subscribers as of right now. That is absolutely mind-blowing. This channel has grown way beyond anything I have ever dreamed. Thank you so much for all your support and thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button. It really means everything to me. Here we go, let's get right to it.
I feel like this is a checklist for idiots. Who the fuck would not make sure all their gear works before hitting record? LOL. I do think having the levels right was good advice.
Well, I'm very sorry you feel that checklist was made for idiots, but on the other hand, I'm very glad you found it useful.
So these are suggestions and we should just experiment on our own?
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to mic and guitar, there are no presets. There are only guidelines we can give you. I mean, I'm not sure what amp you're using or what cabinet you're using, and I'm not even sure what is the best speaker on your cabinet. If you check out my How to Record Heavy Guitar video, you'll see there is massive differences in tone from speaker to speaker on a 4x12. And again, there's no presets. You really do have to figure this out for yourself. I can only point you in the right direction. Recording guitar is a lot like learning how to play guitar. It's just something you have to put time in at and learn what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. So all I can do really is give you the best advice I possibly can and say, put some time in because you will develop some skills. Good luck.
Are we assholes for using AdBlock and not giving you revenue for your videos?
Well, let's just put it this way. I'd really like to do YouTube full time. If you're running an ad blocker, that makes it a little more difficult for me to do that. However, you can support the channel in other ways. You can hit up my Patreon at patreon.com/Spectre Media Group. And you can also support me by purchasing a t-shirt. By the way, I've got shirts on sale right now for as little as $10 and $11. You can get the Rule Number 2 shirt, Stop Cupping the Mic Dumbass. All of them are reduced, like I said, 10 and 11 bucks, and I can ship to the US for 8 bucks and anywhere else in the world for 10 bucks. That sale's going to be on for at least another week, so if you would like to get yourself a really cool shirt and piss off your bandmates, now's the time.
Hey Glenn, love your videos. We were in the studio a couple of weeks ago and had a problem the snares always rattling very loudly when hitting any of the other drums. We ended up putting a piece of paper clamped between the drum head and the snares. Do you have any other fixes for that kind of issues other than tightening up the snares or the drum head because that fucked up the tone sound we wanted to get? Thanks in advance for your answer. All the best from Austria.
That's a great question, man. And that is definitely a beginner kind of question. As somebody who's recorded drums for over 16 years, and my passion really is recording live drums, the best advice I can give you is don't fuck with the snare because it's supposed to sound like that. Yes, you're gonna get buzz as you go around the toms, but the idea is learn to love the buzz and learn how to deal with it a little bit more efficiently. If you're doing weird things to your snare to get it to stop rattling over the toms, you're overthinking it, believe me. A little bit of chatter's a good thing that adds life to the drum sound. The trick is gate your snare mics as you're going around the toms and cut that off. That will cut down on the chatter huge. And if you've got your bottom snare mic, make damn sure that is muted during the tom fills. You're gonna pick up a little bit in the overheads, you're gonna pick up a little bit in your room mics, but I'm always rolling off my overheads at least 500-600 hertz anyway, so a lot of that really gets minimized in a full mix. Don't overthink it. Don't worry about it too much. You know, you can make sure your toms aren't sympathetically tuned to your snare, but that's about as far as I go. These days, I just let it rip, man, because like I said, that's part of the sound. Don't overly sanitize your drum sound because you're not doing yourself any favors at all.
Though at my university, I got to have a small group studio session with Mike Exeter, Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls producer, watching him how he mixes. A real eye-opener on how someone approaches a mix. If you had the chance to watch over any producer, who would you watch and why?
That's a great question, man. I think number one on my list would be Tom Allom, who did all of the Judas Priest records from Unleash the East all the way up to Ram It Down, including British Steel, Hellbent for Leather, Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith. I mean, like, Screaming for Vengeance is the record that got me into music. I would love to sit down with Tom Allom and just pick his brains or watch over how he approaches things and how he does the whole process. I think that would be absolutely fascinating. Honorable mentions would go to, of course, Frederick Nordstrom, Bob Rock, Chris Tsangarides, another huge influence, and of course, Michael Wagner, who was the other half of the soundtrack of my youth. Michael did just some amazing records throughout the 80s. Like I said, when I wasn't listening to Judas Priest, I was probably listening to a lot of records that Michael Wagner did. So that would be my answer to that question there. Notice, none of those guys used auto-tune.
Hey man, how is it to record Paul Bostaph?
Like to do a little clarification there. I didn't actually record that Queensryche song. I just got to mix it. And truth be told, I didn't even know it was Paul Bostaph on drums at the time I was mixing. Basically, I got handed some multi-tracks. They're like, okay, you got 48 hours, go. And I was like, motherfucker. So started, pulling up faders and whatnot. It's like, holy crap, that's Jeff Tate's voice, for real. So that was pretty cool. And I just remember saying to myself, and I actually made a comment on this, was, wow, whoever is playing drums on this record, major salute to you, man, because you really know how to hit. And I got to say, that was one of the most beautifully recorded sets of drums and tracks I have ever got to mix. Just magnificent stuff. And I found out, after the record came out, holy crap, that was Paul Bostaph on drums. No wonder. So that was just kind of one of those things. I was just like admiring the player without actually knowing who it was. And that's kind of cool. Yeah. And I gotta say, just a magnificently played set of drums. The feel, the technique was just beautiful. It was so easy to mix those tracks.
Hey Glenn, I come from Fort Worth, Texas, and I love the show. Is there any kind of difference sound-wise between miking a single bass drum with a double kick pedal or two bass drums with single pedals? What are the pros and cons of both?
Getting two bass drums to match is an art form unto itself. You gotta get the drums tuned the same, make sure the same skin, same kind of beat, same everything. And that the mics are matched, the preamps are matched, all that kind of crap. You can waste a lot of time in the studio trying to get two bass drums to sound close to each other. I have two bass drums. I've used them on a couple of records. I definitely prefer the double pedal method a lot. Another thing you're going to find is that's going with a single kick drum. That's going to clean up the bottom end of your drum sound huge. There's less sympathetic vibrations. It just cleans up a lot of the mud. The main advantage of using two kick drums is basically for player comfort, and that's really up to the drummer. So if the drummer's more comfortable using two kick drums, that's cool. Just be prepared for a lot more work and make sure you get paid by the hour.
My phone notified me that you had posted a new video, so I busted out air drumming and singing to The Eagle Has Landed intro, and the whole class looked at me like I was one of those useless bass player things.
Dude, that's amazing. That's so fucking awesome. Yeah, I could just see that right now. I'm going to presume you're in high school. So yeah, if you're watching my show during your high school classes, don't worry, you're not going to miss much. The only people more useless than bass players are high school teachers.
What's your opinion on direct line-in recording that some amps offer? Or using a headphone jack in most amps with a converter so you can plug it into your microphone slot on your PC directly? Good or bad? I suppose you really only get one tone that way, but it sounds pretty good to me. Plus, I suppose it cuts out the need for an expensive mic?
Well, man, make records any way you can. I remember doing something very similar to that when I was about 17 and really didn't know all about, how to record guitar sound or whatnot. And this was, we're still using cassette decks and that kind of thing back in the day, and I didn't even have a multi-tracker. The reason we mic an amp is because a microphone kind of smooths the tone off a direct signal. A speaker's gonna shape the sound, and a microphone's gonna shape the sound and make it very pleasing, whereas a direct sound is gonna be very, very harsh. If you're recording direct, I highly recommend recording some cabinet impulses. I'd say check out my friend Robert Rosen's company, Rosen Digital. He's got some absolutely spectacular cabinet impulses that are very inexpensive to get. But definitely, you're going to need some kind of cabinet simulation or something like that to take the edge off the tone. Good luck with your experimentation. Oh yeah, before I forget, I also want to give a big shout out to my good friend Matt Diamante. He is at matchstickempire.com. If you guys are looking for an amazing web designer, check out Matt. He does my site. He's working on the new WB Gear site, and he's also done work for NBC Universal. Absolutely fantastic guy to work with, really knows his stuff, and he's going to be thanking me ever so huge for giving him this shout out. But if your band needs a website or you need a website design for whatever reason, check out matchstickempire.com. Matt is the man.
Hi Glenn, I'm trying to record my guitar, but it sounds like shit. Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong with my setup?
No, man, looks pretty good to me.
Hi Glenn, I remember you mentioning at some point that drums will sound awful on a concrete and carpet floor. Can you explain why? As my drums lack life and I'm sure this has something to do with it. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, now this is a little tip I picked up from the one and only Roger Nichols, who had done Steely Dan and John Denver and all these amazing records. Yeah, I know a lot of you metal guys are probably rolling your eyes right now, but seriously, never turn down good advice no matter the source. If you put on some of Roger's records, they are just stellar sounding, especially the Steely Dan stuff. Anyway, yeah, If you put carpet over concrete, basically what you're doing is you're going to be reflecting the bottom end of your drum sound, because the carpet isn't going to do anything to absorb those low frequencies, but it will absorb the high frequencies and make everything dead and tubby. Your best bet is to maybe grab a couple 4x8 sheets of plywood, fasten them together so you got a nice 8x8 platform, and put your drums on that. Make sure you got spikes and drive them into the wood so your drums won't shift, and record like that. I guarantee you're gonna liven up your drum sound, and they're gonna sound a million times better.
This bloke is just an arsehole, likes the sound of his own voice. He is not reviewing the amp, just spouting off and being a fucking dickhead.
I think I'll quote George Carlin on this one. Everybody likes it when you speak the truth until you speak the truth about them. Then you're an asshole. All right, that about wraps it up for this episode. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button. Before I go, I just want to drop a little news with you guys. I know we talk about anime quite a bit on this show, and I'm going to be doing a very special anime-only SMG viewers comments on top of the regular Friday viewers comments episode in the very near future. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I've got some really cool news on that. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time.